I'm just going to start us off by first acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge their spiritual connection to country. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Melia. I'm part of the community team here at Blackbird, and today I'm really pleased to be joined by Pip Stocks, the founder of Hearsay, for this edition of Giants Weekly. So Pip is a passionate advocate for brands building their own customer intimacy programs. She's the CEO and founder of Brandhook, a brand and customer experience consultancy, and also the founder of Hearsay, a platform that helps clients integrate their customer conversations and improve their customer experience. With decades of experience in the CX space, Pip has worked both agency and client side, and you'll probably see her regularly commentating in industry publications. So today, Pip is going to take us through what data you should be gathering in your startup and why, including the importance of big data and thick data, and how those can help product market fit and growth, and finally, how to gather and measure that data. So as usual, we're going to have about 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A. So send those questions as you have them through using the Q&A function. And I'll hand over to Pip now to get started. Thanks, Pip.
Thanks, Melia. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen because I'm going to take you through a presentation. It's just easier so you can see it on screen. Yeah, welcome. Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you about this idea of meaningful customer metrics. We're going to go through how big and thick data build product market fit, and I'll talk to you about what those two sort of definitions mean, and just to summarize product market fit. How to gather this data, so the 3 data buckets that you need to be looking at, and then how to validate those findings when your product is in use. So how does big data and thick data build product market fit? Well, product market fit will be a term that you will have heard millions of times in this short or long journey that you've had. And it was a new term for me as well, and I'm very old. The thing to remember is that when businesses fail, it's because they don't have this idea of product market fit. What that really means is that you don't have a market need. So you've got this great idea, your mates think it's a great idea. Your cohort may want to buy your idea, but what you need to understand is, does it have wider appeal, and exactly who does it have wider appeal to? So what you need to do to understand that, so this idea of product market fit, so to ensure that you don't fail, ensure that you are hitting a product, a need, the idea of product market fit, exactly, the term that is used is, it's the key assumption that underlines why a customer is likely to use your product. It's the value that you offer, and that's what is really called product market fit. If you're doing this exercise, it helps you identify the features you need to build, the audience that's likely to care, because you may have the idea for yourself, but there's likely to be a bigger audience for you as well. The business model that you need to actually build around your product to entice your customer to buy it as well. Now, you go through a number of iterations to get to this product market fit. I mean, we have definitely done that on our Hearsay launch as well. But essentially what you need to think about is that you are satisfying a customer need. And it's a sort of an old-fashioned marketing term. I'm not sure how much you hear about it today. But when we studied marketing and practiced our marketing, we talked a lot about satisfying a customer need. And you have to have that in your head as you're building out your product or service. So what's big data and what's thick data? Well, big data is a quantitative method. It is a number or a percentage. It's something like only 1 in 3 take the free ice cream. Ooh, that's interesting. But the qualitative data, or your thick data, is when you explore why. So you've got what, and then you've got why. Now, it's called thick data because it's often a conversation. It's asking questions of your customers, toing and froing, and you're basically exploring, why do you think that? That's interesting, tell me more about that. The key to gathering data is getting both of these 2 types of data. And the issue that we've had in the past is big data has been quite easy to gather, because you feel that you design a survey, you send it out to your cohort, you get responses back. but it doesn't give you the insight that you need to develop what we call your product market fit. This is a typical big data dashboard. You know, you've got all your numbers, all your percentages, you've got different colors representing good and bad. You know, big organizations have many of these. They have whole departments to do this, and we're not suggesting that you do this at all. I've got a simpler version. Thick data is something like this. It's when you're actually looking at the person and your customer type and unpacking some of those numbers and understanding exactly why. So for example, if you look at this price, this is a quote about how Vicky, your customer, feels about price. Money's tight, I'm a stay-at-home mum, so I don't have a lot to spend, I'm always looking for the best price. So you might have a statistic that says price is really important to Vicky, and then you need to understand why through the thick data. So how do you gather this data at this early stage? We would say that there are 3 different buckets of data that you need to gather. And again, most of you will have had some experience of this in, you know, building out your company. There's obviously your financial data, which really looks at, are we making money and what is our runway? And there are 3 things we would suggest that you really look at, particularly as you start to build your company. And I wouldn't make it very complicated, but I would make it based on assumptions. So you obviously need to look at your sales. So, you know, are you generating any income? You need to look at your gross margin. Are we making money from the sales we're getting? And then we need to look at your cash flow. How long can we last? Now, this is I would spend probably half a day on these. Well, I have a financial manager, which is great, and you do have access to these kind of financial managers. But I would say you would need to spend a day and a half looking at these numbers on a regular basis, especially with your cash flow. Once you have your cash flow spread out, you can start to work out, well, how long can we last? But you really do need to understand, do customers like us because, one, they're buying us and that we're making money from that? Is our pricing strategy correct? But build out a very simple cash flow that takes you out to a year or 18 months and look at what you're forecasting in sales and what you're forecasting in margin. So you can start to see how long you've got. The second customer data that you will look at is your funnel data. This is kind of almost a podcast in itself or a webinar in itself. But again, build it out quite simply in the beginning. What are you getting from your socials and your Google? What are the drivers of that? Driving them to the website, how many people are we getting to the website? What's that traffic? And what are they doing when they're there? So are they downloading a product demo? Are they downloading a white paper? Are we able to keep hold of those people so that we can go back and talk to them about our product and convert them into a customer? We do this. This is not our data. This is fake data. But one thing we've noticed from doing this is we're getting people to the website. So we're getting some traction from our socials. We're getting people to the website, but then we've got a barrier. We're not getting people doing what we want them to do. And if we didn't have this set up like this, we wouldn't be able to understand what's happening. Now, again, coming back to product market fit, what are we not doing well enough on the website? What are we not telling people? Is our messaging not right? Is our look and feel not right? Are we not targeting the right people with the right message? So again, laying out some simple data really helps you on an ongoing basis measure this idea of product market fit. And the customer data that you should be looking at is obviously, have we got customers? Have we got repeat customers? That's a really big metric to look at. I mean, if you're a SaaS platform, you'll need to obviously have some kind of subscription model or constantly repeat customers. But are people coming back? And that's a really good number to look at. And the other number that's really good to look at is, what is the number that actually relates specifically to our product or to our category? Now, for us, it's actually conversations. So we're really interested in how many more conversations are going on in the platform and how many repeat customers are we getting. doing those conversations on a regular basis. But again, it's a simple way of looking at what is the customer behavior. So we've got your financial data, particularly looking at sales, gross margin, and your cash flow, really important. How long have we got? You've got your funnel. So how many people are we likely to be able to get in? How are we getting them? Is it through our socials? What are they doing when they come to the website? And are we able then to move them through into being a customer? And then this data, they're a customer. Are they using us more? How often are they using us? And how many times are they doing what we want them to do based on the product that we're building? Now, the one thing that we really recommend is it's great to have all those numbers. They're your big data, their percentages and their drivers. What you really need to be doing in the first stage of your business is having conversations and building out what we call your thick data. Now, remember, this is where all the insight sits. This is the why. You've looked at a number, you're now investigating why. Now, we recommend speaking to over 100 customers, particularly in your first 3 months. And in fact, we would say, we use the term 12 every 2. You need to be talking to 12 customers every 2 weeks and on an ongoing basis. But in the very beginning, it's 100 customers in your first 3 months. Now, what do you need to be talking to them in that period? Well, you need to be finding out if you have this product market fit. I'll just take that slide away because it's a bit busy. You need to be finding out do you have product market fit? So your conversations at this point need to be about who are you? What are you like? Tell me a little bit more about yourself as a customer, because you need to learn about them and what drives them and what their life is like and how they're using products and services in the category that you're building your product in. And then you need to talk to them about your product. You need to start with them, the customer, and then you need to move on to your product. Most people, when they talk to people, they spend a lot of time talking about their product. And what we would recommend first is you've really got to understand the context of your customers' lives. You need to understand what makes them tick and what products and services they're currently using. So back to the busy slide. So on the right-hand side, there are 8 things there. What you need to do is first describe and document your ideal customer. So when you started this idea, who was the person that you wanted this product or service to be targeted to, and who did you want to buy your product or service? But you need to have it on a 1 page. Describe who they are, okay? At this point, it might just be a hypothesis, which is great, because your 100 conversations is going to refine that and clarify that. You may have 2 customer types. You may have 2 types of people you want to talk to. Document each of those on 1 page each. A bit of a description about them, what their current behavior is, and what you think they're going to like about your product. The second thing you need to do is recruit them to talk to. Now, no one's got any money in the startup world, so you can't pay to recruit people, but you can ask friends. Don't ask friends directly, but ask your friends of friends, okay? Because if you start asking your friends to give you feedback on your idea, they will inevitably tell you how fabulous it is because they don't want to hurt your feelings. You need to go wider, so ask friends of friends. Offer some kind of reward. We've seen this in the Scalata cohort that we're in. When you need to offer people a thank you. Now, in the corporate world, they pay people over $100 to have conversations with them. But in our world, it is simply a prize draw, a chance to, win a top iPad. But you do have to reward people. You'll get more conversations if you are likely to reward people. The 4th thing you need to do is write your hypotheses. So what do you think your customers are going to say to you about their lives and about your product? So what do they currently think, feel, and how do they currently act? Just write 3 hypotheses. It's very important that you set up your conversations that way so that you actually get the most out of it. But if you set up your hypotheses, then you know what it's like a science prac. Then you know exactly what you need to ask, and then you know exactly how to ask it. You need to write a conversation flow so that you're not just going into a conversation like, hi, how are you? Tell us a bit about why you like my product. You need to be, again, it's a science here. Start wide and get pointy. So as you can see here on the triangle, ask questions about their lives, ask questions about the category, ask questions about other brands that they're using. Then go into your product or service. What do you like? What do you not like? And how would you make it better? It's very simple, but it's very important that you attack these thick data to understand your product market fit with some level of science. Record your conversations. I mean, there's lots of voice to text, and again, we don't have a lot of money, so you might want to use one of the voice to text programs just so you have a record of it. And then write your wow moments. Your wow moments are the things that you've heard in that conversation that you thought were amazing. And there'll be 3 or 5 things. Now, you've got to commit to these 100 conversations. And if you commit to writing these wow moments, you will get real clarity about what people like about your product or service and what you need to do to get that really good product market fit, which means it will appeal to a greater audience. You may even change who you're targeting through the journey. So that's also very interesting to think about. Once you've done that, once you have all of those conversations and you've got a product in use, you can actually start to quantify some of that qualitative data. And I think in the early days, the simplest way to quantify whether people really like what you're doing or whether you do have product market fit is to use this Sean Ellis test. I'm not sure how many of you know about this, but we're actually attaching it to our Hearsay platform in the next round of release. You ask the question, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? And you get 3 simple answers. Then you have a couple of open-ended questions. What type of people do you think would benefit most from using our product? And what is the main benefit of using our product for you? And how can we improve it for you? So you're asking every time, that first layer of question, you're asking every time, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? And you're starting to get a feel for the use. How useful is it, the thing that we're building? And what is our product market fit? Now, the rule of thumb with this Sean Ellis test is if it's over 40%, you can assume you have product market fit. If it's under that, you need to start to go really interrogate the answers in 2, 3, and 4. If they've said it's somewhat disappointed or not disappointed, then understand what they're saying in 2, 3, and 4. But remember, your 100 conversations is really going to set you up so that when you put this in place into whether you send it as a survey after people use you or, depending on the cadence of your product use, you can really start to build out constant feedback. So your 100 conversations, but then constant feedback. I'm a real fan of a CEO who used to run Procter & Gamble, obviously one of the largest FMCG companies. And I was very lucky to work for the agency that ran a lot of their advertising in London. And he says, I'm like a broken record when it comes to saying we have to focus on the customer. I don't think the answers are just in the numbers. You have to get out and look. And it's true. I know the 100 conversations in 3 months sounds laborious and hard work, but if you don't do that work up front, you're going to find yourself in trouble later. And the last thing you want to do is spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time building out a product that at the end of the day, people don't find useful or are not disappointed if it does no longer exist. Questions? I might stop sharing, Melia, so then I can...
Sure. Thanks, Pip. That was excellent. And I really, I think what you finished on in terms of, if people aren't disappointed that your product doesn't exist or no longer exists, is a pretty crucial thing for our early stage founders to be thinking about. It's a great point to kind of end on.
It's not something you think about either when you're building out your product, because you're building your product with such passion and, you have this feeling it's going to be great and I love it, but you really need to test the wider audience, I think is, the really big point.
Absolutely. So to kick off the Q&A, I actually wondered, with the split between thick data and big data, how do you, or is there a kind of ratio or split that you usually think about when looking at, there's 100 conversations in 3 months piece, but then there's also all of this quantitative or big data that you have access to, presumably kind of on demand. Is there a method or a split that you think about in collecting that data, or a recommendation of how to look at even time that you spend? Obviously that 100 conversations is quite a lot.
Yeah.
So thinking about that with the big data.
Yeah, I mean, what I would be doing is setting up the framework for the big data. So I would make sure that I've got my frameworks in place, and again, make them at this point in the early stage. They've got to be quite simple. I'm pretty sure you've got lots of templates at your end. There's, wherever you are and whatever, you can even download from the internet kind of some simple frameworks, and I would populate those frameworks. So that you have it there. Now that could take you a week or two just to set up your frameworks, but that's important because then on an ongoing basis, like I populate those frameworks on a Sunday night. So I start filling out my funnel on a Sunday night so that when we have our team meeting on a Monday morning, Marlies, who's our finance manager, comes with the financial numbers and cash flow, and she will have filled out all those numbers, and I will come with the customer numbers to the team so that we can just discuss what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a week and a bit just to get all those frameworks right. And then you are spending kind of half a day populating that on an ongoing basis. The 100 conversations, I mean, it is an investment of 100 hours at least upfront, because we would recommend talking for an hour. That idea that you're developing the context, what's your life like? How are you using other products and services in this category? And what do you think of us? I mean, to really flesh that out, it's an hour conversation. So that's a minimum of 100 hours. Then you've got to make sense of it all. And that takes another kind of 50 hours. But, it creates the conversation that you have with the team. So it's almost that those analysis conversations are being had in the moment during the week in the team meetings. You might have a session on a Tuesday. If you do your financial numbers on a Monday, you might have a Tuesday session which says, right, everyone's been out talking to customers. Let's just download what we heard and what we need to do to our product tech plan. Do we need to be tweaking that?
Gotcha. Question about whether this approach works for product concepts. So if you've got a product or service that hasn't yet been built, can you still use this approach? And what would you recommend if you're not yet, or you're in the stages of building that product?
Oh, this is, even if you have a product, I would still be presenting your product as a concept. I wouldn't be sharing the product necessarily as a live product. I would just be describing it. This is what the product is in a sentence. These are the benefits to you, and this is how it works. There's sort of we're doing this with a corporate client this week. We're going up to test some product concepts with them in Sydney. So it is literally, we've written them as concepts. What is the sentence that the concept's about? What does it do? Like, how does it work? What is the benefit to you as a customer? And it's a one-pager. And it's a perfect time to be having your customer conversations at this conceptual stage.
Awesome. A question about the metrics, or specifically the customer metrics. So how you talked about Hearsay having like your kind of gold metric around customers as a conversation. Yeah. Are there any other examples you can give of that, or maybe for products that aren't in the SaaS category?
I mean, again, if you're building out a product, like a physical product, maybe a food product. So maybe it's around, I'm just thinking about, ordering, kind of food online, or so you definitely want customers, you definitely want repeat customers, but you'd probably want like, how people are using it. So, okay, sorry, I'm rambling. One thing I'm thinking about is those food companies. So Marley Spoon, or, one of the metrics you'd probably want to measure in that instance would be, are they giving us feedback? And are they using the food that's being given to them? So yes, they're ordering it. And yes, you know, you might get three meals a week, but are they actually using every one of those meals? And are they actually, like, is it of use? Is it being cooked for the family? How are they actually using the product when it gets into their hands? I think that's the key. When you're looking to find this third measure, what is it that you've promised to do? Like, and how are they actually using it when it gets into their hands? So you've got customer, repeat customer, and how are they using it? I think that's probably where that third metric is summarized.
Yeah, absolutely. So it becomes about customer action or kind of behavior in relation to your product or your concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. And we've probably got time for a couple more. Question about resourcing. So you mentioned before that, you know, when you think about the customer research, you know, you'll be collecting some of your data on a Sunday night. You've got other team members that bring their own data. And certainly with that big and thick data, there's a number of different potential kind of people that are involved. How do you look at resourcing for this? Do you suggest having somebody who owns the kind of approach end to end, or in a small team, should everybody actually participate?
Yeah, so I mean, on the Hearsay business, we're a really small team. So I own this funnel data. Megs owns the customer data, so she goes populates usage within the platform and how people are using it. And Marlies owns the financial data. Now, you know, so what we all do is we all know that we have to do that every week. But do we know that we have to, you know, measure it from the previous Monday to the Sunday, and we have to come on a Monday morning with our spreadsheets populated. And again, Marlies has probably more complicated spreadsheets than all of us because they're financial forecasting ones, and she's got, you know, tabs in the back about assumptions on salary and, you know, how much money we're spending on tech. But Megan and I have just really simple Excel spreadsheets that we just go in and put the numbers in. But we did spend that week setting this all up so that it was really easy for us to do that ongoing work. And in the meeting then, we're not populating it, we're discussing the numbers. So we're actually saying, oh God, we're a bit low on this. Why did that happen? You know, we forecasted X amount of customers. Why hasn't that happened? And then it becomes, okay, well, we need to be making more calls. We need to be recontacting those that have had a product demo. You know, you can have a genuinely good discussion off the back of that then.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish, if you had any advice for people who are starting from scratch and, you know, thinking about how they can implement all of this great advice, what would you say? Where do you start?
I think it can feel really overwhelming. So I think, you know, just do one thing at a time. So, you know, start with your financial expectations. So I've got this product. What do I actually think I'm going to make any money out of it? That is the one thing that I find when I meet founders as a mentor, that is one of my first questions is, yeah, this is brilliant. I love it. Great. I can see you're passionate about it, but how do you actually make money from it? And I think that's something that people then start to think about. Oh, okay. And then how are you going to pay yourself, you know, and how are you going to pay the other people? And then who do you need to come in at what time to help you actually build this out? And that's where that financial forecast. And you can even start just on a whiteboard, you know, what are our assumptions here? Well, we think we can get $1,000 a week. We think we can talk to 5 customers to do that. We think we need this amount of people to run a business like that. So you can just lay out your assumptions in a very simple way first. And then you can see, is this a product that's really going to make money? Is this a real opportunity? I know we love it, but how are you going to make money out from building and, you know, exhausting yourself by building this out? Because at the end of the day, so, you know, even if it's not something you want to sell and you want to keep it forever, you do need to pay yourself and you do need to live, and we all have expenses. So how can you, at the very minimum, make enough money to pay yourself? At the maximum, become one of those fabulous founders that sells it for $1 billion.
That is the gold metric after all, being able to pay yourself a living wage, right?
Nothing in between.
All right, that's all the time we have this morning with Pip. On behalf of Blackbird and everyone here on the call, thank you so much, Pip, for sharing your advice and your insights with us.
Thanks for
For
having
those
me.
that, our pleasure. For those who are on the call, and if you're in the recruitment phase, I hope you'll join us next week for a session with Francisco Morales, recruitment lead for engineering, leadership and security at Canberra, for a session on hiring and scaling development teams. And don't forget, if you're a really early stage founder, you can apply to join our new Giants community to get one-on-one mentoring, connect with other founders and learn from exclusive resources. And you can apply to join through our website. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Pip, and see you next week.